I'm good, man. I'm in Brisbane. Whereabouts are you?
I am in Edinburgh, in Scotland. Yeah, this is home for me for the last nearly 20 years now. So
Wow, what
yeah,
prompted that?
uh, I always say it was a bit of an accident how I ended up here. It was like ex-girlfriend's sister came here, ended up moving over. We split up, ended up staying here. Met my wife who was in Nottingham, and she hated Nottingham, so we came here, and it's been our home ever since. So yeah, yeah, it's a good place. And yeah, the weather's not looking too Scottish at the minute, so you know,
Always a concern in Scotland, yes.
yeah, yeah. How's Brisbane?
Brisbane is good. We are coming out of a very cold winter and hopefully getting back to, not having to wear a jumper, which is very strange here.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
this is subtropics, like it's it's weird when it's cold. But
yeah. I think the last time we were there, I'm sure it was pushing like high 30s. So yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to think if we've ever been. I guess we're coming in October, right? I'm not sure if we've been. Well, if we have been in Brisbane in October, it's been a very long time. So
yeah, it's
not,
gonna be warm.
yeah, yeah.
You may
Maybe
melt.
not. Yeah, maybe not as warm as the last March we were there. So
Oh, yes. Oh, that would be spicy. I
yeah.
imagine, Jesus, coming from like Edinburgh to, Australia in March. How do you not die?
Um, it's I don't know. We spent a lot of time indoors being in a band, I guess. So that's probably the secret to it. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I guess we've been doing this, like traveling, different climates, time zones, and whatever, and hemispheres for. I guess like yeah, it's about almost 30 years. I guess the first time we were in Australia was like I think it was like September, October '95. So
Wow.
yeah, we're pushing on 30 years since our first time being there. So it's been something we've done like maybe not every year, but most years we've found ourselves in a different climate. If I don't get it, winters feel really hard here. So that'll be a welcome break.
Yeah. Now you were doing a singles tour. Um, what inspired that as opposed to doing a more straightforward album promotion tour?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was more from the promoter's side. To be honest, it's like to be honest, we were quite surprised about the like being invited back to Australia so soon because I think it's when we get there, it's going to be like 18 months. I think since we were there. I mean, we figured so we just toured Australia. Maybe we'll be there. Like maybe it's usually every 2 or 3 years we come down there. So I'm kind of looking at our like kind of historic releases and stuff. I like in the back of my mind, I kind of thought that maybe we'd not be back in Australia until the 30th anniversary of 1977, which is in 2026. So I don't know. We were just like the promoter was like, "We'd love to have you back. Can we bill this as a singles tour?" And we were like, "Well, we need to get those rays get away from our own incoming winter." So we were just like, "Yeah, well, let's do it." So yeah, I mean, we've I think we've had this reputation as a singles band. We're quite comfortable doing that. We can do a set full of singles, but we've also got a new album which had like 4 or 5 singles on it, which we've never played in Australia before. So we've got that to keep the diehard fans happy as well. So yeah, yeah, looking forward to it.
Does Clones get played a lot these days?
I'd love to play it a bit more, but it's one of those. It's a difficult one to do because it's in like a completely different tuning and needs like it almost needs its own separate pedal board for Tim to kind of achieve a lot of the sounds on it. So we have sort of experimented with trying to get that one into the set a bit more often. But it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one for sure. I'm sure we played it sometime in the last year, but it's yeah, it takes a lot of logistics, and I guess like flying over to Australia might mean it doesn't. But we got social media. If people want to try and shame us into playing that, then we can see if we can find a solution to that. So yeah,
So,
sometimes it doesn't really work in me, to be honest. Because I'm just like I want to do whatever we want, but I think maybe other band members might sort of like if they see people saying that. And Clones is it's one of my favorite songs as well. I absolutely love that one. So if you want to like sort of like yeah, give them a little nudge, then go for it.
I remember being stunned when I first saw the video for it, and then the song started going, and then Ash comes up. I was like, "This is Ash!" Like,
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, when you mentioned being stunned by it, I remember being stunned by it because we'd obviously we kind of like demoed the song firsthand. Like a lot of the time when we're doing stuff in the band, it's sort of like it will get demoed kind of instrumentally, and then Tim will go off and he'll write lyrics and like have the melody kind of sorted out. So it's like I think back in those days we played it like insane volumes, even in rehearsal rooms and stuff. So I hadn't really heard the melody until he sort of like finished the vocals in the demo. I remember the first time listening to it, going like, it just like really, because it's such a heavy song, but then the chorus kicks in and it's such like a melodic kind of hook in this really heavy song. I was just like, wow, okay, this really is quite different. Yeah. That's definitely a one song that kind of sticks out from the writing process for me as well.
yeah. So Ash has never been afraid of soundtrack work. Throughout your career,
Yeah.
you've been on a bunch of them, and you were pretty heavily involved in one of the best movies ever, Shaun of the Dead. What was your reaction when you first saw it?
Oh, it's just like like I think the whole team in that movie are just like kind of comic geniuses, and it's just yeah, it's just wonderful, a wonderful piece of I guess well, to me it feels like quite British humor, but at the same time it's something like I guess is translated kind of around the world like really well as well too. So yeah, it was great to be I think we got a couple of tracks in there as well. So yeah, it's just like an honor to be involved in that.
Yeah. Now, you released Race the Night last year. Now that you've got a bit of distance from it, what do you see as its strengths and perhaps its weaknesses?
Um, I think it's a kind of. I think we're in a like kind of. I guess I like to be quite optimistic about these things. So it was like I'm going to say fortunate because one thing that we've tried to do, like ever since we did the like A to Z series, which was like 20. If you don't know what that was like we released 26 singles in one year. It was like I think sort of like from mid 2009 to mid 2010, we did like 26 singles over a 12-month period. And I think back then we'd said we're not going to do albums anymore. That was kind of a reaction to what was going on with like downloads and like iTunes and whatever. Now we did go back in our word. I think when we went back to doing albums, we've always had this kind of idea that we want to put out albums sort of like back to back and sort of just getting a real roll. And we've got a lot of ideas for where we're going to go next with albums. But one thing that's happened since then also is like it feels like stuff's just kind of got in the way of us actually kind of achieving that. So one of the biggest things obviously was the pandemic as well, because the band's kind of like scattered all over the place. We didn't really get a chance to work and stuff during that point, but Tim just kept writing, and we had like tons of stuff. We almost had an album ready to go, like straight off the back of Teenage Wildlife, which was a kind of best of we put out in 2020. So COVID's kind of put a stop to that album. We were like, we can't put out an album without being able to tour it, and if we can't tour it, it's like it's going to hold stuff up. So what happens? Tim wrote a bunch of other songs. We had this eclectic album that we could have put out like straight after COVID, but because he kept writing, I was like, well, we've got songs going in a certain direction, and we've got songs going in another direction. Like, why don't we try and like kind of like focus in on giving the album a bit more of an identity and sort of like I think the remit for Race the Night was to take the songs that were more sort of guitar driven, and then after that we could do something that was maybe less guitar driven and more experimental. So I think that's the strength of the album. Now within those kind of like boundaries, I think it like Race the Night does move about quite a bit. You know, you got like quite punky songs like Brain Dead, and then you've got like very poppy stuff like the title track Race the Night, and then you've got, you know, like a God, which is, you know, kind of like almost like proto metal kind of riffing and stuff. So it does kind of shift about, but I think one of the strengths is it's kind of like it's probably as streamlined as Ash are ever going to get, because we're always like shooting off in like loads of different directions at once. So but we kind of find ourselves in the same situation. We've got a lot of songs that are left over from Race the Night. And we're like, we kind of enjoyed that kind of like corralling things into like a bit more of a direction. So we're kind of we're going into the studio next week, and we're basically at the same point where we got like by the time we finish recording these songs, we'll have 2 albums worth of material. So it's like, how do we kind of slice that up and make that work? But we're hopeful that we can maybe get 2 albums out, if not next year, then like in consecutive years, which has always kind of been the dream.
Yeah.
And then once we get that going, we can hopefully just continue that flow, because, you know, I think for a band that have been around for, you know, 30 odd years, I think we're always, I think one of the things that makes us quite unique is A, we've never split up, and B, we're continually like kind of focused on getting new material out as well. So yeah, I think that's you know, that's kind of our, or at least the USP we're trying to sort of push at the minute. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, if nothing else gets in the way, we can kind of achieve those goals that we've had for, you know, the last 10 years or whatever.
Yeah. Who do you see as some of the best drummers getting around at the moment? Who are some of your favorites?
I tell you who's really great. Who I had the honor of actually playing with them, because they're a band called Big Special, who are like new band in the UK, who are doing really well. They supported us last year, and ever since we played, it was just like a tiny warm up show, and they were like, you know, first on in this tiny like 200 capacity club, and we met them, got on with them, absolutely loved the band. Big Special, who've blown up here. I don't know if they've sort of made any waves in Australia yet, but they're like a 2-piece from Birmingham, and the drummer's just like, he's absolutely phenomenal. Really, just like on the case, it's like basically it's him and a bunch of samples and a singer, and you know, he's got a lot of space to fill, and he fills it really well. So yeah, he's Callum from Big Special. If you haven't heard Big Special yet, check them out. Just geniuses.
Nice. So, looking back on 1977, how would you describe the music scene as it was at the time?
It was, I guess it's kind of easy to look at it in hindsight as, you know, Britpop was this like massive kind of thing, and, you know, we get kind of lumped in with that as well. But if you look at what, you know, what we were doing, I think it's definitely more, we're a bit of an outlier in that scene. I think the thing that probably tied us to that was using Owen Morris as a producer, but I think all our kind of like sonic references were pretty much at that point coming from the States. You know, bands like Pixies, Nirvana, Dinosaur Jr. and stuff. But I guess, you know, I guess that Tim's always had this really strong sense of melody, which kind of fitted in with the Britpop scene too. But it was a fun time. It was just a lot of guitar stuff around, and it was probably a little more eclectic than is maybe given credit for at the time. You know, it's stuff like, you know, Black Grape with a lot of hip hop influences, and then you like, you know, like Blur being like the sort of like the Kinks or whatever of the Britpop thing, and Oasis as the sort of Beatles kind of side of things. But it was like it was a fun time. But it's like, yeah, where we fitted into that was kind of weird. And then stuff like probably my favorite band from that era would be like Super Furry Animals, who are just like unclassifiable, just mad acid geniuses. So yeah, it was definitely a cool time to be around. It was like it maybe that I don't know if there's really been like any sort of like exciting scene that's quite like since then that's really felt as kind of exciting as that was at the time. But
Well, there was a someone made a really good point in that the 90s was kind of the last time that, truly alternative music was getting pushed on, in mainstream radio. Spring break teenagers were rocking out to Primus, and all this bizarre, wonderful stuff that was happening.
yeah,
The theory that happened was that they made a tiny change to the Telecommunications Act as to how many radio stations a corporation could own, and a company called Clear Channel went around and bought every radio station they could get their hands on, and all of a sudden, the modern boy band was born. That because they all
yeah,
started playing in sync and all that shit. This was right at the
yeah,
end of the 90s.
yeah. Yeah, and you probably, there's probably an argument to look at as like, sort of like Britpop as the kind of the beginning of the end of the sort of like alternative scene. It felt like success became the only kind of measure of what you were doing as well. It definitely seemed more prevalent. I think that might be a naive thing on sort of like the teenage me or whatever, but it definitely felt that being big was like kind of like the only goal at
Yeah.
that point as well. Where I think for me, I definitely came from more of an underground place, sort of musically. I was like more like it's kind of weird that I'm in a Britpop band because I grew up as as a teen metaler, So, but yeah, it was kind of it was a fun time, but it's like it's maybe maybe within that it's kind of sowed the seeds of alternative zone destruction.
Yeah. Yeah. Rick, thanks very much for your time today, dude. Best of
No
luck with
problem
the
at all.
tour. I hope it is wonderful. Pack some shorts and yeah.
I don't do well with shorts. I'm just going to suffer. I've been doing it for years. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Have a
yeah.
have a good one, mate.
Right. Yeah. Good chatting to you. All right. Take it easy.
Bye.
See ya.